G'day and welcome to Matt's Workshop. This is part 5 of the DIY laser build, and today I'm going to be looking at mounting more components. In particular, we're going to be looking at the laser tube mount, the mirror mounts, and we'll also have a look at installing the stepper motors, the one at the end of the X-axis rail, as well as the one that's controlling the Y-axis between the two couplings. So I've got my 90 watt laser tube here, and I don't want to mount that in there while I'm still building and risk breaking it, but I need to find the right position for mounting these tube holders. So I've opened up the box so that we can do some measurements, because have got the supporting location printed on them. So what we need to do is just position the tube in the laser machine so that we can find the correct measurements to mount it. To support all these components that we're going to be putting in through this aluminium sheeting, underneath there are support 30-30 profiles. So these components will be bolted into those to keep them from vibrating and moving around. So these supporting location stickers, they're a guide. They're not a must be absolutely on that 10mm sticker. So we can adjust in between, but it just gives the laser tube a good support from both ends. So once you've found the location for the tube mount, then what we're doing is we're going to be putting in another 30-30 profile. We're going to be putting a few of those through here for the aluminium sheet to screw into and reduce vibrations, so that these will also be bolted on one part of this tube mount on both tubes. And the other thing that we need to do is make sure that it is square to the edge, so that we get a nice straight beam to the point of the mirror, and it can continue and make our beam alignment and laser alignment a lot easier in future. So I'm going to go ahead now and get this all bolted together, all nice and secure, and then we'll have a look at mounting the stepper motors. So I've got the tube mounts nice and secure. They've been bolted through, and to help with the alignment of the rest, I've made these acrylic discs, and in the center I have a red dot. So the red dot is just a little battery operated red dot pointer, and I've been able to line it up and get these at the same height, so we've got the right level. The red dot passes through the hole in the center of this disc here, and then that allows me to line it up with the mirrors. So I'm actually going to put the mirrors in and position them. It's a very rough way of making sure everything's lined up. Obviously, when we get down to fine tuning later on, we need to do a mirror alignment. The most important part is actually making sure that we can get good alignment between mirror 1 and 2, and then from 2 we can go across to 3 later on when we do the mirror alignment of the laser beam. So to set up mirror number 1, we need it at the right height, and the right height is actually so that it's level with the height of mirror number 2. So mirror number 2 is sitting over here, and I've adjusted it using the screws on the back to lift the height to the top of mirror number 2, and that's because mirror number 2 is not height adjustable. Now we move it back into place to where it's going to be, and to help with this process I've cut out a disc here. It's 6mm acrylic with a red dot pointer in the exact center. So I've used it to help me align the positioning of the mirrors and the tube mounts. Now with the tube mounts, they're going to be mounted on this plate as we discussed and fixed into the alloy extrusion underneath. With it placed in this position, you can see if we look at this red dot pointer that I've used, and we have the mirror there. I'll get it into a position where it's good to see. You can see that it's quite low on the mirror. So if there's the mirror there, it's not actually, the center of the laser beam is not going through onto the mirror. So what I've had to do is use the other laser machine that we have off site, which is 150 watt, and cut out some spaces out of some 10mm acrylic. Now I've used these spaces because I've used the height adjustment and it's at its maximum height. I can't get this to go up any higher, so therefore I won't be able to get the laser beam aligned. So by using the 2 spaces and then mounting it underneath, we'll be able to use the height adjustment now and get it onto the mirror. So I'm going to fix these into place and continue on with the mirror alignment. So to help me with this alignment, this is mirror number 2, and it's got movement in the sidewards direction. So I've got it mounted halfway so that later on when we do our laser beam alignment, we have some movement each way. So these tube mounts are mounted directly onto the spacers, the aluminium sheeting, and they're bolted through with 65mm bolts and some lock nuts on the bottom through the aluminium extrusion. Okay, so with this tube mount, this is the rear tube mount with the red dot pointer. I've now got the packers in underneath that we made on the other machine. So we've got 20 mils there, and I've adjusted the height so that this tube mount is at the same height as the second tube mount. Now the second tube mount also has a white disc in there, but it's got a hole cut out of the centre, and I've lined it up so that the red beam goes directly through that hole. Now by placing some tape on our mirror mount, we can see that we're at a much better location for aligning our mirrors. If I take this tape off, I've put the mirror in there, and we can see that we can now align up to our mirror number 2. So I turned the lights down so that you can see the red dot. So it's coming from mirror number 1 and onto mirror number 2. And you can see that if we actually start to move the carriage, it stays relatively central the whole way down. And that gives us a good starting point for our mirror alignment when we put the laser tube in later on. So that's sort of what you're looking for, and it's why it's handy to have that red dot at the start to get everything nicely aligned. So once you're happy with the positioning of this red dot, you can then go and fix this mirror number 1 into that position. So we're going to have a look at the mounting of the stepper motor on the end of this axis here. So we've got the stepper motor and the bracket, which we mounted when we aligned the linear rails. So just remove that bracket, and we place the stepper motor in behind, and the bracket has a V on the front, which is where the belt will be running, so we can place that underneath and then bolt that into place. So once the stepper motor has been mounted to the bracket, you should be able to freely move it up and down like this. So we put the belt on, and then what we need to do with the adjustment is have it so that the belt is actually nice and taut. So you adjust the belt using this screw at the bottom, and to access that I have a hole drilled in the aluminium sheet so that I can pass an Allen key through there and tighten that up. So once the belt's nice and tight, we can then tighten off the other bolts that hold the stepper motor to the bracket. So this is the other stepper motor that I'm putting in here at the moment. This one has the coupling, this mount has the couplings and a gear which has the belt already attached to it. So you might want to just pop that straight over that gear while you're mounting it together. And once it's all nicely secured, then the way that we would adjust the tensioning of the belt is with the screw on the top here. So just tighten it down until you get the good tensioning on that belt, and then locking in the 4 nuts and bolts that hold the stepper motor to the bracket. So thanks for visiting Matt's workshop. In this episode I've been able to secure the laser tube mounts and get those mounted at the right height, and using that red dot beam alignment system that I put together, being able to mount mirror number 1 in the right position and getting it to align through to mirror 2, etc. I've also been able to install the stepper motors on the X and Y axis, as well as some other things that I've been doing in the background are things like the gas lift struts, making some brackets for those to be mounted to the aluminium extrusion. So we've got the gas lift struts installed. We've also been making brackets for the lift bed set, so we'll use those in an upcoming video. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. In the description below I'll put Cloudray Laser's website, as well as links to some of the products and components that we've used in this build. So more information is available on my website at mwlaser.com.au. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when I release new videos for this DIY laser build. And until next time, take care. Cheers.